The film adaptation of the fantasy adventure book series The School for Good and Evil is finally streaming on Netflix. But what went through behind the scenes in adapting a classic tale into a motion picture? Well, I spoke to film director Paul Feig to get more about this newest Netflix film.
It was first sent to me about 3 years ago, but it was also in development for, I think, another 6 years before that, ever since the book originally came out. It was just a very tough book to adapt because there was so much in it, and there was so much fun stuff in it. How do you pare it down to a reasonable size? But it's been a real fun journey for me. I mean, we kind of prepped the movie all through, and I did rewrites on it all through the lockdown and pandemic. And then we shot during the pandemic, and have been in post-production for a year. So it's such a thrill now that it's finished.
Was this a film or this type of genre, would you say, would be one of your bucket list? I mean, from interviews that I've read from you, it's maybe a genre that you have chosen to shy away from, in a bit, and all of a sudden it like fell on your lap. Walk us through. I mean, was there ever a hesitation that you said, hold on, guys, this is like a scary project. I mean, having come from the book to be able to do something like this,
Yeah, well, I mean, I never shy away from projects that frighten me. And, at first blush, when my producing partner, Laura Fisher, told me about it, she just said, they sent over this, Netflix sent this fantasy movie. And I was like, I don't know if fantasy's my thing. And she's like, well, just read it first. And I just fell in love with these characters so much. And the idea of getting to build a world, which I had literally just been saying recently, like, I miss doing a big movie. It was so much fun doing Ghostbusters and working with all these artists and designers that I was kind of ready to slip into another big world. And this one came along kind of at the perfect time. But yeah, fantasy was never on my bucket list before this.
Is there any other genre that you would also maybe hesitate doing? Or you're just going to take it all in?
I'm going to take it all, yeah. I mean, there's so many genres I want to do. I want to do a musical. I want to do a sci-fi epic. I want to do a horror movie. I want to do a Western. I mean, there's that. I got a lot more to go, so.
What would you say would be the factor in this movie that stuck with you, that resonated with you, that said, this is like so close to home. I would really want to do this movie.
Yeah, I think it was the relationship between Agatha and Sophie. I just love stories about like close female friendships because I don't see them portrayed that well on screen in general. And all the women I know have such great friendships that are so supportive. And I'm tired of seeing women kind of set at odds against each other in movies, even though, clearly Sophie and Agatha go through a whole thing in this, but they kind of never lose their love for each other. And the fact that friendship kind of saves their lives in the end really resonated with me, and really kind of, by the time I got to that final scene in the script, I was like, okay, I'm so in, I have to make this movie.
And not only that, but also, a lot of people have, it's quite tricky when you have to adapt a book into a movie.
Yeah.
It's scary at most. I mean, maybe for some people, but you seem to be able to just bite the bullet and I'm going to do it, because it was just, something that probably you thought that, why not? I mean, you've done Freaks and Geek and maybe had the same concept, a little bit. But what would you say would be maybe tips of how you go about, doing that whole conversion?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to be, you're trying to bring in a new audience, so you want to make it so that everybody gets it and doesn't have to read the book, so they don't have to do homework before they see the movie. But you also want to serve as the fans, too. And so you have to kind of find that halfway point of getting fun, and I worked with Soman, who wrote the books, and said, like, what are the scenes that the audience loved, that the fans of the book love? And so we kind of got those, and it's like, okay, but then you got to figure out how to tell a very complete story within that. And so then it's about figuring out what's the connective tissue for all the things you have to lose, because you have to lose a ton of stuff because the books are just too dense. But that's the fun part. It's fun, like, figuring out that puzzle and figure out what is going to be the emotion that pulls people through this story.
How close was it to the book? I mean, did you have to change some scenes? Did you have to put in a bit of yourself I mean, in this movie?
Well, you always put a bit of yourself in your movies when you're a director, especially when you write too. But I mean, it's pretty close to the book. It's just it's all about taking things out. You just have to condense a lot because the movie would be 20 hours long if we put everything in, and we could never afford to do it. But you know, the main theme and story is there, and things in a book that could take 5 chapters to figure out. Like, you know, there's one thing in there where the schoolmaster says, "What's the one thing that good can never have?" That evil can never have, that good can never do without. And in the book, it's about like 5 chapters of them trying to figure out this riddle. But for me, it was just like, Agatha's smart. She figures it out, so she says, you know, true love. So it's those kind of things. They're going like, oh, I think we can pull these things out, collapse it. The audience is going to be ahead of us anyway, you know, and you always want to stay ahead of the audience. So that's one of the things. And books allow you to take more time.
Wonderful. You know, I wish I had like 20 hours to speak with you, but what's the biggest takeaway that you would like the audience to take, you know, from sitting down and watching this film on Netflix?
Well, I want them to know, first of all, they're going to have a really fun, beautiful experience watching this. They're going to laugh, they're going to cry. But I think just taking away the idea that good and evil is a very black and white term, and like we got to stop defining our opponents as they're all bad and they're all good, you know, and just find that middle ground. We're all humans, and I think this story tells that in a very non-preachy way, but a very lovely way too.
And of course, with that, we can expect the next one and the next one coming.
Fingers crossed. If people watch, we got to get the ratings. If we do, then yes, more to come.
Well, you know, it was such a fun movie to watch. Thank you so much for spending time with me.
Thank you,
Such
Christine.
a talented man. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. Good to see you. Cheers.